what do you, and whoever can start, what do you actually do? Because we've seen what you are saying, the messages, and how you see the holistic approach, which Martin also touched upon, but what do you actually day to day? Because I'm sure some people here are like, this sounds great, but can you give us maybe one example of something you actually do? Whoever wants to, Signe, Geerte, whoever wants to take it first.
Yes. Well, very shortly, there are two really important things for us. One is find the partners you need to do the program. Like the last example, a lot of cities just do the warning signs, don't do it. If you do not cooperate with the right people, like the police, etc., it's an empty message. So first sit down with the partners you need to really solve the problem. Find the highest goal, because at the end, we all want livable cities. So we can agree on that, and then go back and doing your things. And the second one is use your data, because it's very straightforward, but it's also because we know exactly by data that it's also half Dutch and English people that do this misconduct.
Signe?
Yeah, and very concretely, we actually launched a couple of initiatives to enable more to gain more from tourism. So in the sense that we're actually both enabling them to understand the value of tourism and how to work with it, but we're also preparing them in terms of if we spread tourism to new areas, we also need to be sure that they're actually ready for it and understand how to get the most from it. So we've launched a couple of those programs, one specifically working with the cultural institutions where we're really helping them become digital, international, because a lot of the cultural institutions in Copenhagen and in Greater Copenhagen actually want more visitors. So that's a very, very concrete example of what we've been doing. And then data, I want to say as well, which is like the new gold within tourism. And we all work with data, and we're all, I think, also working with and trying to understand the possibilities of data, because it's become sort of the solution to everything. And at least in Copenhagen, I think we're still working on that. But understanding a little bit more both the consumption and the movement patterns of how tourists actually behave and use our city is one tool that we're integrating so that we can, help others understand how to affect and influence that pattern.
Martin, are you a male from 18 to 34 from the UK or the Netherlands?
No.
I'm going to ask him a question, but please start raising your hands if you have one, because I'll take the next one. Do you think, because you have a different perspective, you offered us the foundation of this part of the journey, do you think they're doing enough? Do you think that there's stuff that, do you admire what both Amsterdam and Copenhagen have done?
Well, of course, they're never doing enough in this issue, and I don't blame them for that. But I mean, it is a relatively recent movement, and there are a lot of different. I mentioned these 130 European DMOs cities, and it's, I think about 10 of those, and I'm not going to name call, but 2 of them are here, are actually seriously doing something about that, and 120 are talking about it for the last 10 years. Sometimes things takes time, and I guess the summer of over-tourism, which we have behind the back now, for what it's worth, at least it's a little like small hurricanes in terms of climate change. It's sort of like it gets the conversation going, and some other cities are now really starting to think like, well, we don't have a problem for over-tourism. We're still in the more, spending more, coming back more, getting more, and all these things. But maybe if those or UNWTO statistics are true, maybe we will have over-tourism in just 5 years. Mm-hmm. So maybe we should start thinking about doing it now. But I mean, the human race is generally speaking quite, reactive and not proactive. So we start solving problems when they're there, and even if we know that they will show up in 5 years, it's very difficult to do something about it before they actually crystallize.
And I guess, I'm not asking a question because it's your turn, but I guess also the definition, or the perception of what is over-tourism depends really of who you are. If you live in the Le Marais in Paris or in some parts of the La Ramblas in Barcelona, you're like, I don't want to see anyone anymore, and depending on how many, it's very...
It even depends on the width of the sidewalks and the bicycle paths, right? Copenhagen can take 6 times as many cyclists as Amsterdam before it becomes a nuisance. So it's not, there are scientists trying to make a scientific formula or an algorithm out of this, but it's perception. If people living in a city or tourists visiting a city thinks that there are too many tourists, then there are too many tourists.
Yes. Absolutely. And London has zero place for bikes on sidewalks. Question, I have one over there. Can you actually provide the microphone, please? Just right there, yes.
Hello. Does it work?
Yes, it does.
Okay. I would like to congratulate the speakers for very inspiring remarks. I'm Christina Puteți. I'm a journalist at Protagon in Greece. My question is for all three of them, how difficult was to achieve the change in the mindset of tourism stakeholders, this may be government or business, from tourism in volumes to destination resilience? Thank you.
As you wish, Geerte, Signe, as you wish. Whoever wants to take it first.
I can start because we're not there yet, so very difficult. It's work in progress. And I think in Copenhagen, as I also said, we're there where we don't have the problem as such yet, and we have an expansion of capacity, a lot of new rooms coming. So there is still a very strong focus on volume and the importance of volume. So I think we're trying to be proactive about it by talking about it, but the mindset is slowly transforming.
Geerte?
Yeah, well, it is, you know, there is this funny publication that Martin showed me, and it's, you have 4 categories for destinations. One is, I want to have much more visitors. The second one is, wow, they're coming. The third is, I know that they're there, I don't bother. And the fourth is, can they please go away? And I think it helps for all the destination, because Amsterdam is not stopping any tourists. We're welcoming everybody, only we know that it's going too fast. And if we talk with the industry, they also know if we want to be a long-term destination and not being kicked out of the market in 5 years because it's undoable, that we need to invest together to take it to a higher level. So we do create, with all these people in the tourism industry, also to invest in the other areas around Amsterdam and making it everything bigger so we can find each other, because we're not against the tourism industry, we just need each other to be in the future a livable, lovable and prosperous city, of course.
Martin, you want to add something on that?
Yeah, well, for the sector represented here today, you better start this conversation. Because if you wait to the reactive scenario that I just sketched, then politicians will react the way politicians do, and they're not to blame for this, right? You don't want, of course the government has an important role to play in all of this and facilitating it and so on, but you don't want to sit around as a sector waiting for the government to take action on this, because if they then take action, a lot of that will be symbolic action and not real action. That's the way politics works. But they might also overreact, right? So for example, I mean, to bring it up, Geerte, but those letters, I Amsterdam, that you saw a couple of times in the presentations on the museum plane in the center of Amsterdam, there's the largest party in the municipal city council in Amsterdam have just said we want them gone, because they're a symbol of over-tourism now, and individuality and la-di-la-di-la. So they're saying like, well, we're going to remove that, and Amsterdam marketing should not be Amsterdam marketing anymore, and la-di-la-di-la. So they're overreacting to 3 summers of over-tourism in a row, because this conversation was not started early enough, right? So it's a little bit of a prisoner's dilemma, but as for the tourism sector, my best advice is don't wait it out. Don't wait it out, because then something will happen which is really not good, and that can be on different scalar levels, probably not going to happen for Greece as a country, but certain islands, certain cities, even some certain city districts.
It has happened, actually.
Yeah, sorry.
Before I go to the gentleman in the front row, I think, Signe, you wanted to say
Yeah,
something.
I just wanted to add that I think it's also an important aspect of the conversation that we're actually trying not to make growth bad, but it's also about the value of tourism in supporting the city that we want to have. And I think this is really something that a lot of our stakeholders is also, you know, increasingly focusing on, saying, what would Copenhagen be without any tourism? And I think we all realize, locals as well, that then Copenhagen would be utterly uninteresting, because a lot of our restaurants are basically there because of tourism. A lot of the culture institutions are there because of tourism. So that's also part of the conversation, that we actually need the tourists there as well.
That's why when in weekends in London, I never go to the center, because people walk too slowly, right? This is what we do, like in New York, same. To the gentleman in the front row, please.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, it's on, go ahead, you don't worry.
Hello.
Yeah.
Is it on?
It's on.
Yeah.
Yes.
A very basic question. The setup of the destination marketing or management organizations, the background, the financial backing, what is it? Is it a combination of state, municipality, and stakeholders? And how is it mixed, and how is it initiated? Just a quick response to that, because I think there's many places in Greece that are looking at doing similar structures. Thank you.
Well, we are 1/3 from the city of Amsterdam. Then we're paid by 33 other municipalities in the Amsterdam area because we use the Amsterdam motto for the bigger region. So they finance us as well. 1/3 comes from 1,100 private partners and cultural partners. And that's not only tourism partners, because we also do the business marketing and the local marketing. It's also all the banks and the insurance companies, et cetera, et cetera. And 1/3 comes just from consumer income because we sell a lot of products to our visitors.
And we're very much the same. It's not from the city, but it's actually right now it's from the region, and as of next year it's changing to the ministry, that we have sort of our basic funding from them, and then we top that with our networks, so that's our networks of stakeholders, and then also consumer products. Yeah.
It's fascinating because in both your cases you really seem to have like included pretty much everyone, trying to make it almost the city livable first, and then it will be livable for tourists as well. Which is the opposite of what I would have asked. Well, anyone else has a question in the crowd? There's over there, I see in the last row. Over there first? Okay, I don't know which year. Okay, over there first. You see that? Yes. Please state your name if you could. Thank you.
My name is Moderator. I'm a great journalist and I'm specialised in the tourism sector for the last 25 years. I've lived in the Netherlands actually, and I was representing one of the very well-known hotels of Greece. Astir Palace to become Four Seasons shortly. Anyhow, my question is, because I'd like to take advantage of the fact that you are here, we're trying to expand in Greece the season, because as you know, we've got everybody here in summer, within 3 months, the most of the tourists come during that period. And the question is, the backbone of Greek tourism, of course, are small enterprises all over the country. What would you suggest, each one of you, suggestion, how should we work on this project, and do you think that it's right focusing on it and trying to do it? What is your opinion? I mean, everybody thinks that Greece is good just for the sea and the sun and whatever starts with S. But okay, that's about it. Okay.
Who wants to take it?
Well, I think you can do really a lot. It starts by telling the stories, because it's hard if you have this strong image of sea and beaches. But if you keep telling over and over again, we had the seasonality issue 8 years ago. So we invented the Amsterdam Light Festival during Christmas. It's on the canals with beautiful light sculptures to attract visitors to also come in winter. I also say be careful what you wish for, because now the locals say, oh, we used to have this slow winter period where finally the city was ours. And now you have this festival, and now the guests are there in the winter as well. No, so one thing is tell the stories, because you have so many stories, and I believe especially Greece has much more to offer than beaches, but you have to repeat to the right people. And think about how to attract with exhibition in musea or etc., but high-end things. So I have a special reason to visit Greece in February.
You go.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of places that are dead outside of the season, and then, well, you can think about wanting to attract tourists to that area to extend the season. But if you don't manage to attract enough of them, they will have a poorer experience, so that might actually hurt the brand. So that's one very clear warning. There has to be a certain amount of people to make monocultural destinations actually work. The second one is that I think sometimes we should, and this is not going to work for all of the places in Greece, right? But sometimes we should also start searching for possibilities outside of tourism. I can imagine, because of your question, I'm thinking, well, I need to write a book next year. And I can imagine that I want to rent a house outside of the tourist system on one of the islands if I can go and work there. But then there has to be at least, you know, a restaurant and something like that up and going. There has to be an internet connection and so on and so forth. But to look at us in different roles, as different uses, and not necessarily as selling a tourism product. It can also be temporary residence. The amount of population in Europe that is graying their hairs, well, what was it, the silver lining, I think, is also rising. So possibly some of these areas could be used off-season for people that don't actually have to work anymore. So along these three lines, I would start exploring. But there will never be one-size-fits-all solution for something as diverse as Greek tourism. Luckily.
Yeah, Signe, then I'll have to take one last question after Signe because we're running out of time, so sorry.
Yeah,
Please, Signe.
I agree. And then the only added thing is you have to get your partners along as well. So in Copenhagen, for example, we have the Tivoli Gardens. That's like a major attraction amusement park right in the city center. It's kind of a historical thing. It's also important for locals. But they actually expanded their opening hours into the winter season as well. And this is a really important part of expanding the season, that there's experiences accessible and open even when the sun is perhaps not shining.
So who gets the last question? I think I had someone of a very, okay, go.
Yeah, hi.
By the way, before you ask the question, you will have a chance to talk to these people, of course, over coffee, lunch later. I'm sorry, we don't have more time here. Please.
The questions come from the Ventura app. It's from the audience. And, okay. Can you please, the question is for Geerte. Can you please share your 3 most important lessons on how to redefine a brand for the modern traveler moving past from stereotypes?
Can you repeat the last few words? What are the 3
how
most
you go
important
by
things to build a brand?
Beyond the stereotypes. So you build a modern
okay.
brand to go beyond stereotypes.
One is differentiate. Like I said with the example of selling a car, make sure that if I hear your story without the name of your place, I know that it's something different than all the other ones. That is one. Second, stay to your storyline. The DNA I showed you is for the rest of the life of Amsterdam. Of course, the topics can change, but the DNA is the same. So that is, stick to the brand. It takes you at least 20 years before you build a brand. Don't go every 3 years to another brand. And for us, again, but it's what Martin says as well, it's about this brand identity. It is the city. We used to be capital of culture, capital of gay, capital of sustainability, capital of business, capital of everything. And now everybody is Amsterdam. And that really helps if you agree. And it's not about power, it's about your consumers and your clients, and they enter your place. I'm the same entering now as a business as I will be in summer when I enter as a visitor. So I love to be approached by one brand.
Martin, you want to add something?
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Well,
I have 20 seconds.
Yes, I agree with all of that. And then just add one thing, when defining the brand, also make it part of definition, how you can actually apply this to real estate developments, all of the other different things. What would it actually mean? How would this hotel become different in this place, contrary to that place? So that the differentiation is not only how you tell the story of your city, but it's also how should stakeholders operate differently to be on brand in your place. That's part of the definition.
And I'm sorry, that's all the time we have now. Please give them a big round of applause.